Welcome, guys. Welcome to 2007 Meet the Maker session. 2007? You call it old school? Okay, old school.
Quiet.
Old school Meet the Maker session. Yes. Whoosh. I'm Mod Fuzzlet. This is Mods RLUK. Can't say your mod name. We're going to be passing the mic around for questions in a moment, but first I want to introduce you to your panel. We have Mod Ash in the middle here. You all know Mod Ash. Woo! Senior content developer. Next we have Mod Reach, our content developer. Come on, woo! Over here we have Mod John C, our QA tester. Taking all your bugs. Okay, we have Mod Ronan, our community manager. And last but no means least, with his own very, very special ghostly name there, is Mod Ghost, our artist, modeler, and animator. Okay, so we've given the guys a little introduction, but will you guys just tell us a little bit more about what you do? We all know they work on Oldscape, right?
All right.
Go on, start us off, Mod John C.
I play the game. No, yeah, so I'm the old school QA tester. It's my job to break the things these guys write for you, which happens more often than I'd like, Dan. But yes, that's what I do.
Don't even start. I'm not even talked yet. I am Mod Ronan, aka The Bowl. I'm the community guy for Old School, always on Reddit, Twitter, the forums, all of that nonsense. So get on there and talk to me.
Hey, I'm Ash. I do content development for Old School, and if you need something made, it's half a chance of me making it, or him.
I guess I'm the other half of what Ash does, which is making content. Usually stuff that kills you or you can kill. I do quite a lot of that.
Hey, I'm Mod Ghost. I do graphics and animation and concept art, and I generally work with Dan and Ash to sort of bring their visions to life. Cool.
Okay. Right. So we're going to start passing this mic around. Just if we can keep it to one question at a time, just don't hog the mic. Let's make it fair for everybody. So, who has a question? Who's first?
I think I know who that is.
This one goes to Mod Ghost. Is there any plans to have a graphical update on the Armadillo Godsword?
Well, basically anything that you want, we have to poll. So kind of like just put your ideas in, we put it to the players, and then if these guys are happy for me to go ahead with it still, then I shall start redesigning. Until then, I have no authority on the matter, unfortunately. It's all down to you guys.
This one goes to all of you. And I just want to ask, what do you think about Sweet Badass losing his AGS by not protecting an item?
No, you have a very nice AGS, I must say.
I don't want to stand up, but anyone that wants to answer this, for the Ultimate Iron Man account, you mentioned if you die, you lose all of your items as if you were skulled. What about items that are in like Nightmare Zone coffers or your kingdom, where you can store gold and whatnot?
All your permanent inventories like Nightmare Zone coffers, miscellanea, POH, etc., they'll be fine.
This one goes to John C. What do you think of skill specs' tassets?
Wrecked.
This one's to Mod Ronan. Why have you got a bowl cut, mate?
Counter question, why don't you?
Oh! Because I got a big nose.
This is basically for all of you. Curious, with obviously Corpse coming out, new drops, is there any chance we've been having anything we can work on for a way of splitting? I know in the live game there's a drop where it splits evenly, just pieces you could turn it in for an item. Is there any way we can do something like that for Old School?
Well, while we certainly could do shards sharing for items like that, whenever the topic's arisen on our live stream, what we normally see is a whole lot of people saying, don't do that. So we certainly could, but we've kind of come away with the impression that there's not a lot of people who would favour it. Now, what we can do with some of the engine features we got recently is try and write something a bit like loot share, so that the item is, given to one person, but the luck gradually gets shared across the chat channel they're in, if that's enabled for them. Those engine features were created for Clan Wars, oddly enough, because back in 2007, we had those engine features made for loot share, and I wrote Clan Wars out of them in my spare time. So we've done it backwards this time. We've got those engine features for Clan Wars, and now we could write loot share out of them. So that would help a bit, I think, for that boss and various others as well.
Who's next with a question? Hands up.
This is mostly to John C, but can we get waffles in the game?
So you repeat that?
Can we get waffles in the game?
I do love waffles. Sure. We've just got to poll them and find out how much they're going to heal. I like waffles, and I like waffles.
We've seen you with waffles. Our last team trip to London, we found out that he likes waffles.
Please remember, we are filming, and this will be going out next week. Please keep it clean.
This is for anybody. If you could have your choice, what project would you work on?
That's a great question. Got to admit, I already got my wishes in. I got bank tabs and I got Clan Wars. Beyond that, looking for another dream project. I would like to work on resizable mode.
Mine will be coming 2015. It'll be the Snake Boss. No, really.
Yes.
After talking about it for last year for a long time, I finally gave you Bounty Hunter, which was #1. I think a raid boss is my next. I think I'd like a Corporal Beast was nice, but I think I'd like do something much bigger, much more exciting, and much more involving.
Anything for you?
Yeah, sure. I was going to say the snake boss as well, just 'cause I can't wait to design that snake. It will be epic. Apart from that, though, I kind of like the idea of dealing with sailing. Although people turned it down, hey, don't attack. I think sailing would be wicked. We discussed it a lot in our last meeting out, didn't we? And yeah, it sounds like a great idea. But yeah.
I was just wondering if there was any talk about bringing Stealing Creation into 2007. I don't know when it was released, but that's actually something that I enjoy.
I think with Stealing Creation and minigames in general, the time it would take to make those assets or copy them is quite... I mean, it's not a quick job. I mean, Gareth can do it, but porting over models means we have to then re-poly them, re-label them, sort out their structure, and it takes a long time. If we were to do that, we might as well make a new minigame. I think Stealing Creation has that feel where it made the game too easy. It was a good minigame. I liked the minigame. I don't know how many other people like the minigame. And I certainly think we can achieve something like that minigame, but I think recreating it, at that point, we might as well make our own minigame. Something Stealing Creation-esque, but it's not off the cards. We can definitely do it.
Something similar?
We can do something similar, no, definitely. It's not impossible for us to do. We can achieve that. It's whether or not you'd like something different just for the sake of having something new, or you just like the same basic copy that you remember from the original leaks.
Yeah, I like it.
For example, take what Alfred said in the video that we played this morning on the stage, for those of you who saw it. He said that just getting the Corp model and the Dark Core and all that into the game took him, I think, 40 hours, he said. And, well, that's two NPCs, the Corp and the Core, and maybe 5 kinds of projectile, if that, and some graves to put down on the ground. And that took him a lot of time. Now, Stealing Creation, or any minigame, is going to start with hundreds of models. Even, say, the Halloween 2007 update that we recently polled, I recently found that's got 900 things in the model folder for it. So recreating the whole of an old piece of content is a very big job indeed, for not a huge amount of extra benefit at the end of the day. If, on the other hand, we created it looking different, you might feel it wasn't Stealing Creation in the first place because it didn't look like you remembered. So we're always cautious when people say copy that thing from the other game, because we won't get it looking the same unless we spend a huge amount of time on it, which isn't really worth it. And if we made it not looking the same, you probably wouldn't thank us so much.
Okay, thank you.
Dragon Claws.
Powerful, ain't they? Nevertheless, Alfie did make the model before he left the company. We should probably take that as a message, should we? Anyway, if we thought they were that popular, and if we thought 75% of people would get behind them, could do. If on the other hand it turns out like a divine sigil, I wouldn't be that surprised.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll come back to the front in a minute.
This is to all of you. What are you doing to combat real-world traders and staking clans, such as main stakers?
We don't actually deal with that. We have a guy for that who's not actually on stage at the moment. We have no involvement with that whatsoever. I mean, Ash and I turn up to work and we open an editor and we make content. John does the same thing. Ronan opens Reddit and Gareth opens the modeler. We have no involvement with that at all. So Tom, who's in the other room, he deals with all of that. He's the one that investigates everything. We have no real exposure to that. So we know he's done something about it because we can go on Reddit and we can see this huge list of things that have happened, people complaining about things, but we have nothing to do with anything like that, unfortunately.
I can ask one question. It's non-RS related, but do any of you mods watch EastEnders?
No, I can't really bring myself to watch that. I don't watch enough
Phil
TV.
Mitchell is the one.
I think John's got an sort of.
I'm losing my voice though.
Oh, okay.
What a family!
There you go.
Best question so far. Were the questions at the front?
It doesn't matter who answers, but Adventurer's Log, is there any chance of getting that in maybe the next 6 months or so?
Difficulty of Adventurer's Logs is it goes on the website rather than in the game. While we have a fair amount of control of what goes in the game and how it's displayed, the website is handled by a different team, and that team has a lot of backlogged work from all departments of Jagex. So we can't make promises and commitments about what they will and won't do, and by and large we find that we can develop things to a much more predictable schedule if we just don't involve them very much. Nevertheless, we've started tracking a lot of stuff, like the boss kills, the number of treasure trails you've done, things with Castle Wars. And that's the kind of information we can put onto an interface for you to read any way you like. So maybe if we didn't look at Adventurers Logs on the website and focused on ways we could try and get that sort of stuff in-game, we might be able to give you something a lot, well, sooner.
Anyone can answer, but a way to pay for membership in game without having to transfer over to RS3?
I think we've touched upon Oldschool Bonds before, and the reaction was rather mixed. That's possibly because bonds have an association to microtransactions, which again, not everybody feels very strongly about. Whilst that would not be the case, it has that link. So I think we'd like a system. We'd like to create an official system which transfers gold from one game to another. Something that you don't have to do through a clan, but it's something we can look at for the future, and definitely we'd like to do at least, because we understand scamming clans exist. So there's no reason for it to be that way.
Would that be something you could do with the trading post?
Actually, you moved
that. It's not something designed into the trading post. To be honest, the trading post is a way of advertising trades to other players in the game, rather like you could by standing in a town shouting, only without all the spam and with a better search feature. So no, the trading post doesn't lend itself to that, but we'd probably need similar things from the engine guys to do cross-world trades pointing at RS3 rather than at Oldscape. For the moment, that's not something they've built in, and I can't say I'm surprised, because it's a rather random thing for them to build in on the side without us asking for it. There's probably going to be overlaps, but for the moment, it's not something we've thought about much.
Also, one more for John. Now that the front page is full, max capes?
We'll answer this most live streams. We will do one eventually, but if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right with an awesome emote that Gareth will probably hate me for making him do, because he's had a tough time with the animation editor recently. But yeah, to justify that kind of dev time, we need more than 25 people. We'll probably do one at some point next year, and I'd like to do something like 200 mil capes with them, and probably do a music and achievement diary cape as well, and anything else that people want at the same time. We could, but might as well round it down to 100. We don't have any skills that go up to 120. Yeah, 200 mil seems fair. Okay. Oh yeah, I know why you want 120.
Okay, this is a question apart from what as we spoke about earlier. Tukar Carl, what do you think about being added in game? Go on, Kate.
I'd like to do an expansion to Fight Caves. I mean, Fight Caves are very, very popular. I think the kiln was very, very nice. I think we can definitely do something like that for sure. I wouldn't like to do the kiln again. I'd like to do something a bit better. The idea of having 2 Jazz on you was pretty good, but I'm definitely down for a kiln cape. I think the idea of ripping up your fire cape to get a better fire cape was a nice touch. And I know a lot of people were like that, so I think we can definitely do something like that. For the future, for sure.
What's your general thoughts on dungeoneering in the game? Just some sort of dungeoneering.
Yeah, we were different.
I'm not a fan of the minigame.
I thought it was the world's best minigame. The thing about dungeoneering is that in it, quite apart from all... I'm sorry. Quite apart from all the dungeoneering things, there's also a complete remake of almost every skill in there. So, pardon? Okay. So, like whole new woodcutting expansions, fishing expansions, and crafting expansions, and new sets of armour. That's a huge amount of content. Frankly, it's a whole... You could fit the whole of RuneScape in dungeoneering if you wanted to, and to all intents and purposes they did, and we almost tried launching it as a standalone product once. That would have been weird. But, so trying to create dungeoneering as it was would be a massive amount of dev work for a team this size, especially from the art department, perhaps. Creating dungeoneering without all that stuff would actually be much more feasible. And although it wouldn't be dungeoneering anymore because it wouldn't be anything like you remembered it. Now, Dan's been talking a lot about raids and ways of making it random so that it's not the same every time. And that is a lovely bit of gameplay, and I would very much like to, well, help work on that kind of thing. We wouldn't necessarily go and pitch it as a dungeoneering skill, though, or even a mini-game. But it is a very good piece of gameplay, and we would like to try and get something like that, even if it's not the same.
You voted for a skill as the 4th, I believe, your biggest priority. We've managed to narrow it down to 4 on our end. Dungeoneering was included. Just throwing that out there. However, as Ash said, we've raised the feasibility of it, but it is something we have considered. Oh, sorry? The top 3, I believe we had sailing.
We had sailing.
We had dungeoneering, and what was the third one? We talked about summoning, because obviously we have that in our archive. There's a lot of work to do for summoning, but because we have one of those skills, we naturally have to include it. Sailing, because why the hell not? And dungeoneering, because again, it's a very, very popular skill / minigame that we know a lot of people like, and there's an awful lot of benefits to having it. So we talked about that one naturally.
So what's the first thing the new engine developer is going to do?
Sorry, didn't catch a word of that. What's the first thing Well, I'd like to get the time that you've spent in-game added to something you can access. Like, so you click on a dude in Lumbridge or whatever, or read a signpost somewhere, or ask Hans. I'd like to get that information available to you, because we understand from Mod Jack Mob it's not a big job, it just needs to be done. And the new engine guy could start on something small like that. Also, frames per second. On our screens, we can see the FPS of the game. In fact, if you've been up to the corp, you'll see it there, and there's no way of turning it off. It would be very easy indeed for an engine guy to just change whether the Jmod checks in or not, and give that access to you. Just as a very small, quick win. You'll notice I'm not talking about getting the engine guy to start with something humongous and earth-changing. That's because, well, new colleagues, we generally don't. Yeah, we did with Alfie, and we slightly did with Gareth as well. And with the engine guy, maybe we won't.
Are you going to make fire making useful?
Yeah, counter skill, fire marshalling. Just use buckets of water on open fires.
I think that's yours, shall we?
I had an idea for the continent. I planned to make fire making a survival skill, as in you needed it to survive in a particular area. We're talking about polar area. to really bring some life to that. And I think if we were to do bonfires, unlike the non-bonfire you got originally, I'd actually like to have a flaming pit going, just for the sort of emphasis of exploring a bonfire. But I think firemaking definitely needs a boost, because I think Andrew once said it's his favourite skill because it took minutes to make, yet wasted hours of your life. So I'd like to sort of balance that a little bit.
He actually went and said that in public?
I think it was at RuneFest he said it.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So this is for Dan or Ash. With Corp, basically how much we've put into soloing today and kind of gotten a feel for it. It looks like, well, no one's even gotten past 1,500 damage on it. So the soloing is going to be pretty tough without things like overloads or stat hammer, different things that are just going to make it a little bit more accessible to get all the way through. So is there going to be anything pushing towards that to make it a little bit more feasible in the future, or are we going to just basically have it at the Duo Plus for now?
What would you like? I mean, would you like it to be a little bit easier, or would you like the challenge of trying to see if you can do it as it is? I mean, Wook's managed to do it in 2008.
Wook's
Okay, he had summoning, granted. He also had stat hammer, but I've spoken to him quite a lot over the past few days about Corp, trying to get all of his safe spots out of him. He's given me most of them, and I think he doesn't seem to be under the impression it's not possible. And I've taken his word not as gospel, but I do believe him. So I'm fine with it as it is. I think if you get the Elysian drop, that's going to help you massively. I saw a lot of people switching between Odium today, which helps. And I think if Elysian was out of, we actually had that, we might have seen sort of different output. But I think it's definitely possible, just from a very, very experienced, very, very lucky turn.
It would also be a bit strange to nerf something before launch on the grounds that nobody's managed to kill it on a beta server. We've launched things where nobody had managed to kill it in testing before. I think Jad springs to mind. I don't think anyone in the company had managed to complete the fight caves before we launched them. We put it out there, and if we'd found over time nobody ever did manage it, then we'd try and react. But I'm not looking for preemptive nerfing on this one just now.
Okay, going to Paul's question, he mentioned the stat hammer. Would you recommend, not recommend, like think about putting in PvP armor or anything like that?
I'm a big advocate for PvP armor. I'd like us to poll it again, but this will be the third time we've done it. And I think when we were talking about Bounty Hunter originally, I would have liked to get the stat hammer, Vestus Spear in there as well, just to have a balance for Corp, more specifically for Corp. But again, we've polled it 3 times, and I don't think the other guys are very, very, aren't on the same wavelength as me with regards to PvP armors.
The problem is that even just the suggestion of PvP armors, no matter how much we nerf them, people have the association with PvP armors and getting one shot by a Vesta longsword, so they'll never let it through the poll, which is incredibly unlikely.
But there's nothing stopping us doing something new, like a Dragon Warhammer with a similar special attack that doesn't hit 60, but it can also lower your opponent's defense. And that might be a route that's worth exploring if you really want one.
Hello? Hey, John,
Hello?
Why was the Sour Sword upgrade so bad?
Because the better one we offered didn't pass. Simple as that. If you want it upgraded, again, let us know what you want it to do and we can offer it. But or maybe you're just bad.
Shots fired.
Have we ever looked into? I don't know if we have. Have we ever looked into making like the slash and the crush melee changes more impacting, like make more of an impact so that PKing and other types of fighting are more varied?
I like it. We like it apparently as a design thing. On the other hand, making changes to the game as it currently is to rebalance, melee, is perhaps going to be controversial if we change it in a way that turns out not to please some people.
Okay.
And it's going to be rather hard to explain in advance exactly what effect everything will have, or get a sense of whether people are definitely going to like it from the numbers. So while that might be a better bit of game design, whether we do it to an existing game, especially an existing old school game, is another question entirely.
Okay, thank you.
Just think about any other old sort of combat updates. You'd imagine what the reaction would be.
Are you going to have the new shields like the Elysian reflect when it's in use, like you do with the Barrows equipment? So doesn't the Elysian reflect damage, so would you show that?
We could have it do it. At the moment, it doesn't, but we can definitely do it.
ever do it in other RuneScape?
No.
Oh, well, nice new idea for all.
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
Tormented demons. Are they a possibility?
Definitely. I think the graphics were awesome. We'd have to look to Gareth for that. The mechanics are definitely doable as well. We're going to do those on the snake boss, I believe, because I think the idea of it switching prayers and switching attack style based on what attack style you use quite frequently and opening a shield and whatnot, having a specific item to take that down, definitely popular. We can definitely do it, and I think we are. As for the graphics, or if you want specific tormented demons, this would be your man.
Also, one more question. Is it a possibility to get a controlled option on the leaf-bladed spear, or sword?
Yeah. Yep.
Good day. Is there any chance of rebuffing the Calphite Queen's drop table? Because it's terrible. Like, there's no reason to go to the boss right now. Other than the pet.
I'm up for that. It's on one of a list of things that I want to do.
I said to Ronan an agility shortcut from the start of the hive or something.
Yeah, the shortcuts I've got slated down for achievement diary rewards when we come to do those. But if for whatever reason that doesn't make it into the game, we'll find another way to do it. But I want to have to retouch that drop table because Wyverns just tank everything at the minute. Anyway,
I could just go Wyvern to make more money in an hour.
A little bit OCD-ish. With the imbued rings, I'm just wondering, can they be enlightened into like a little bit lighter colour?
I put that job on our wish list for polling yesterday, right before we left for RuneFest.
That's what I'm talking about.
All imbued rings, yeah.
I've got a question. It's not a troll question, but I mean, hand cannons, will they ever be introduced to the game?
From the noises I just heard, I'm not sure that's 75% yes.
Hi guys, I don't know if you can reveal, but I've never seen a third age weapon in old school. So I just want to know like the rate. If you can reveal that, that'd be great. From getting one from an elite. So that'd be great if you could just tell me, so I could stop searching.
Yeah, I've not actually released these drop rates yet, but I'm happy to do it now if I can remember the numbers.
Go on.
I believe you have, when you complete the elite clue scroll, you have 4 rolls, and you have a 1 in 25 chance on each of those of getting a rare drop. I think we've got 32 rare drops on elites, one of which is a jump to the mega rare table, and then there's a 1 in 16 chance of it landing on the third age table, and then a 1 in 16 chance of it being a third age longsword, or another 1 in 16 of being a third age cape. I'll double check those numbers and tweet them to you, but yeah, we've got no third age longswords, no cloaks, 3 wands, hi Paul, and 2 bows.
Thank you, man. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm obviously a big fan of all the new stuff that gets brought in the game because I feel it expands and brings new people in. The only thing I don't like is when we release new items, it tends to devalue old things. With Dragon Boots when they came out, we pulled if they could add the spike to the Rune Boots, which obviously failed. But is there a chance for when newer drops come out, before we just make a new item, to be like, oh well, let's buff an old item so it still stays able to have a reason to get it?
That's something we've increasingly been trying to do by launching things like the Saradomin Tear, the Abyssal Tentacle, that kind of update, where it was designed to eat the previous version of the item rather than just making it not worth having anymore. And yeah, we are very happy to keep developing things in that way to when we invent an item ourselves, rather than copying things like Dragon Boots from other versions of the game, we've got the flexibility to design it in a way that, like you're describing, doesn't devalue our existing items so badly. When we were just copying in God Wars and everyone knows you get Dragon Boots from that, it would have been very hard to get a big consensus around changing it. But for new things we design, we can do it that way.
I think we're very, very conscious of things like that, and it's apparent that not everybody wants to lose the sort of value of their old items. So if we look at the Dragon Defender, I'd probably like it to include the Rune Defender, just so we don't ruin the Rune Defender style. I think, as I said, we've got the Abyssal Tentacle now and the Abyssal sort of Whip. So we like to include the Abyssal Whip in that, just so it's not a completely useless item. You still need it, even if you're not going to use it.
So to kind of follow on from the last question, I was going to ask about if we could have glaciers, and instead of the normal boots drop, you could have like Steadfast would be an attachment to like Bandos, Glaven's like an attachment to Ranging boots, and Glaven's an attachment to Infinity boots, or something along those lines.
I think if we were to introduce those boots, we'd definitely do what we just talked about, adding them to existing items. Glaciers have a really nice set of special attacks, and I think Chris L did those when he were doing Ritual. Is it Ritual of the Mage Rot? It was Ritual of the Mage Rot. I'd like to do that boss. I wouldn't want to copy it exactly. I'd want to make a new one and just have the same mechanics. But if we were to sort of have those boots, we definitely have the items which use them and then add them to existing items, because everyone likes their ranger boots. No one wants to give up their ranger boots. So if you wanted them and make sure they were still valuable, you just add items to them just to upgrade them.
Hello. Something that I really enjoy while AFKing a skill is to actually go onto your Twitter feeds and look at other players' achievements with screenshots to enhance some experiences using the front page of RuneScape. Is there a way that we can incorporate screenshot availability? So you'll find when taking screenshots and then trying to submit them to just on stream in the general chat, nobody wants to click them because everyone seems to think it's a virus. Could we use RuneScape webpage as an upload?
And there'd be some way of making sure it's not a virus, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can easily use RSS feeds to do things like that. Obviously, it would have to be monitored in some sense because there's no real way of stopping anybody submitting anything dangerous or pictures of certain body parts. But we did talk about once having imagine oldschool.com/streaming, where it would jump to the top viewed stream, or we could rotate through stream. So you could watch Twitch and interact through Twitch through our website, for example. And you could open links from that because you'd use your RuneScape account. As for submitting Twitter images, I think Ronan's got something very similar to that on the forums. I think we could probably do that on the webpage for sure, because I think, as you say, we do tweet a lot of images, we do retweet a lot, and I think it's nice for people to see everything we've got. I don't know how your thing on the forums is working.
On the forums, it's just it's an embedded Twitter feed, so we could just set it up so if you use a certain hashtag, it comes up on this feed. Like Dan said, it would need to be monitored is the main problem. We probably have to manually tweet them all out at a certain time in the day or something like that. It's a possibility. The only thing I would say is that if people are not clicking on your links, just use an Imager link and they'll click it without any worries at all. People tend to trust it because it's a very legitimate website.
You're talking about the Abyssal Tentacle and the Kraken Tentacle. And you say it doesn't devalue the whip, but doesn't it not devalue the actual Kraken Tentacle because you only ever need, theoretically, one in your whole RuneScape career unless you somehow die with it. So it does, raise the value of the whip, but it does devalue the value of the actual tentacle.
This is correct, and we looked at various ways of approaching this with the Saradomin in tier so that in some way both of them would go out of the game and maybe you'd be left with something else entirely. Sometimes we're a bit constrained by that. And sorry.
I need my scorecards.
Ebola.
Yeah, sorry. That's what happens if I don't have any tea for a while. Anyway, that aside, sometimes we're a bit constrained by the need for a PK to be able to get something when they kill you, and you've got one of those, you need to be able to drop something that the PK can have. Turning it into coins is one way of going about it, although it's not a very nice way of going about it necessarily. What we usually like is where we can try and drop it in a null state like Barrows does, where the PK gets something worth having, but there's no confusion about what state it's in when they get it. It's the difficulty is with things that degrade. Like, it might be a fully charged one, it might be a near-dead one, and we always have to try and find some solution whereby the PK knows they're going to get something worth having, regardless of what state it's in. And, with those two, the solution we ended up with is one where the tentacle never goes out of the game, and nor does the tier. That, of course, is why the tier is so massively expensive in the bounty shop. Kraken Tentacle also takes a fair bit of getting, but, yeah, you have a valid point there, and it's something we will be trying to design around with future items.
Another possible Gobbles drop, I was just thinking with the God elements such as Saradomin's Whisper. What do you think about that?
That's the new amulets, right? One for each class. Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with them. I think we'd be happy to do them, and they're easy enough to create. But it's new items that have to be polled, and then you have to work out the mechanics, make sure they don't devalue anything, rebalance them. Again, it's something we can do and are willing to do, provided the community want it.
Have there ever been talks of agility affecting combat?
Of what?
Of agility affecting combat? Or is that kind of the same as what we said earlier?
If I were going to change combat such that agility was a combat stat, I'd be very surprised if 75% of people in this old school game were willing to get on board with that. Like, it might be a reasonable thing to do in a combat system, but I wouldn't necessarily go and do it now to an existing game. What, doesn't yours do that? No! Prove it.
No, last time I tried that, I just getting my shoulder.
So I got a question for Mod Ronan. How's the clan website going along?
It pretty much isn't at the minute. I mean, it was only ever going to be like something so I can quickly whip up images for any future clan cups. It was never going to be some massive, all-encompassing game battle style website. I'm nowhere near good enough to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, so one more question. So I love PKing on Old School. That's probably one of the activities I'll do the most. However, what happens is people tend to use the same weapons and it just gets really repetitive. Would it be possible to introduce maybe more spec weapons to just make it a bit more colourful, a bit more, varied?
We can't just introduce spec weapons for the sake of introducing spec weapons. We kind of need to have some sort of substance for them to come through, like bosses or new Slayer creatures. I agree that we do have very, very samey weapons, whips, DDSs, D-maces, spears or whatnot. So it's nice to have a lot of variety. I think, as a PK, I mean, I don't know, would it be worth it having a variety of different weapons that you're not entirely sure? I mean, a new person that comes back that sees a weapon they've never seen before, completely decimates somebody in the wilderness, would that change PKing too much?
Well, I'm not talking about adding like 50 new weapons, I'm talking about maybe adding like 3 or so. Because at the moment it's either DDS, AGS.
Well, when we talk about new Slayer creatures, I think like the presentation today, we had the Abyssal Dagger there. I mean, we can definitely add variety, add new mage staffs, add new daggers, add new range weapons. With that, we're down for, because we have to release something with a new boss or a new piece of content, like even including Treasure Trails, we introduced a few weapons there.
The other problem is that if you want to introduce a new spec weapon, then you're going to have to make the spec weapon do something so people actually want to use it. And they're up against an AGS, so if you can come up with an idea that is comparable to an AGS that can hit, like 76, something ridiculous like that, then we can absolutely do it, as long as it's not going to completely unbalance the game and make everyone freak out.
All right, this is a question for anyone that knows the answer. With the server disconnections becoming more frequent, is there a solid solution that you guys can have to fix this, or is this kind of completely out of your control?
It's completely out of our control. I mean, we don't see the server-side things like this admin team do. They're completely responsible for our infrastructure. They're responsible for our network. And we have to wait for an answer. So when we're not giving you an answer, it's because we don't have an answer. We're waiting for an answer just as long as you are. When we get one, we usually tell you. But we've done content changes our side, like the temporary death mechanics, to sort of cater for that. That's something we can do. But on the other side of things, we have no input on that, unfortunately.
What we can tell you, though, is that they have worked on a fair few things to try and mitigate this. There's 1 or 2 things being done already, and there's 1 or 2 other things that are in progress as soon as they've, finished controlling RuneFest, really. So it's being worked on, not by us, though, so we can't go into detail. And frankly, I wouldn't go into detail even if I could, because it's not something I want to publicise the details of. I'm sure you understand why. But unfortunately, we're seldom going to be in a good position to give you a full account of it.
could you please unban Wildiones1? I think he was a great member of the RS community.
No.
Is there any way to change the Zamorakian Spear special attack so it's not the same as the Dragon Spear special attack?
Nice, easy one. Yes, let us know what you want it to do. We can poll it, and if it passes, we can do it.
Hello again. Is there any chance of bringing back in the ancient curses? And in correlation to that, is Nex a possibility? Because I know she also uses the curses as part of a system. So
I've already copied Nex over. I have Nex. We've already talked about Nex being possible. Nex is possible. As for curses, Soul Split was a game changer. So was Turmoil. I think Soul Split removed the need for food, really, in a lot of cases. We could do a dumbed-down version of Soul Split. That's pretty cool. I'd like the idea. And I think a new spellbook in general is a good idea. But as for Nex, Nex is definitely possible, and I did explore Nex first. I got the model, I tweeted it once. I got the old model, the original model from launch. And I think I sat down with Chris Sell at one point to talk about what Nex could do slightly differently, because obviously I can't do that update as much justice as Chris did. It changed the game. But when you have Nex, you also got to consider Torva and Pernix and Virtus, obviously, which are very, very powerful armors. But we can definitely do Nex. Nex is possible as a boss, and all of our mechanics are definitely possible for us.
Are you guys planning to expand the prayer book?
Yeah, as I said a few minutes ago, we've talked about a new spellbook and a prayer book. They're definitely possible. Whether or not it'll be specific to curses, we can definitely have a new prayer book for sure. Just what you want them to do.
Are you gonna pull like Augury and like Rigor like soon, sometime like?
Again, we do have the option for new spellbooks, and we can do new prayers as well. So we just need somewhere to put them.
I recall we did poll them, in fact, on the minigame reward shop, and the consensus from the players is don't put them there. So we'll very happily put them somewhere else. I'm sure you'll let us know where to put them.
Okay, thank you.
Will we ever see Bola returning?
Do you think they'll get 75% support?
Honestly, the PKing community needs something new, especially multi-PKing. It dies very quickly. People don't want to risk like 100 barrages in the wilderness. Like, it's a lot of money in game. Like if you're a multi-PKer, Bolas, it actually made teams want to go out. They didn't have to take expensive gear. They'd still fight. It makes the world a little bit more revived.
We could almost certainly implement the code for them and obtain a graphic for them if enough of the people wanted them.
Is there any plans to expand high-level woodcutting?
We actually pitched a few in the Artisan Skill blog, and although it didn't pass, we've got all those ideas still knocking about and could dig them out again separately from the skill idea. So, yeah, we could have a lot more wood up there. And we could also do... Yes. And we could also do other possible updates as well if you had something different in mind rather than just different kinds of tree to chop. Different trees, of course, might imply, you know, more bows and things like that, which they don't have to, but if you want something else entirely, like something in the sawmill, for example, or something like the Artisan's Workshop was for smithing, then by all means let us know more details of what you had in mind. But yeah, I do believe quite strongly in fleshing up the skills all the way to the top. We've been doing it gradually with Slayer, but Hunter and... is the one that really springs out to me as needing it. Woodcutting also, though.
What about making ivies in 07?
AFKing isn't all that popular as a game mechanic, and I'm loath to introduce much more than we already have.
Okay, one last question before we end this session.
Integration for old school, like in the future at all? Twitch integration for like old school?
When we talked about Twitch integration for RS3, I did ask the guys if it's possible to get it for old school. And there are certain rules that Twitch, when you're trying to do Twitch integration, Twitch sends you a list of things that you're expected to comply with. Some of those things weren't possible for Old School, so we did look at getting them look at getting those features. Some from Engine, some from Web. But again, getting any time from the Web team is very, very difficult. And whilst RS3 managed it, we'd probably go. And now we'd enter at the bottom of the list. It would take quite a while, but I'd certainly like to have something like that for Old School for sure.
I believe the webcam was a particular problem.
We do have to enable webcams for you, unfortunately. But even if you choose not to use it, which was a particular problem for even RuneScape 3. So I think with us, especially with, we've got an engine dev now, but at the time we were talking about it, it just wouldn't have been possible for us.
Right, really sorry guys, but we've run out of time. Thank you for coming for a brilliant session. Give it up for your Old School panel.